What to sow in February? That's what we're talking about today, so let's get some seeds going. Hey everyone, how's it going and welcome back. It might be late winter, as you can see from the snow sliding off the top of the conservatory, and certainly if you go outside it definitely feels like late winter at the moment. We've got even more snow here in Ireland. It is really windy and freezing cold, but if you look around you'll start to see that spring is starting to push through, which is brilliant. And you might be wondering, what seeds can I start sowing in February? Well, today I'm going to talk about all of the seeds that I'm sowing and the seeds that I can recommend you starting as well. So all of this comes with the usual caveat that you need to know and understand your last frost date. It's important so that you don't sow your seeds that little bit too early and end up limping them through until the weather conditions are good enough that you can get them planted out. If you have a very late last frost date, maybe just consider holding off for another couple of weeks before you sow the seeds. Maybe push them back until the back end of February or even the first week of March. There's really no problem doing that. They'll catch up really nicely, and it is so much better than having a whole glut of seedlings that you're trying to look after for that extra bit of time. So let's kick off by talking about the seeds that I'm sowing that are going to need that extra little bit of heat if you want to get them started in February. And by heat, I mean using a heated propagator, a heat mat, or even your airing cupboard, just to lift the temperature and get the germination process started. And I'm talking about tomatoes, chili peppers, and sweet peppers. So for tomatoes, I'm going to be growing 6 different varieties this year. The reason for that is I really like to grow a couple of established favourites that I know will crop nicely and that I enjoy, and then try a few new interesting varieties each year. There are so many different varieties of tomato out there that you can get something a little bit novelty or something a little bit different. Give it a go, and you never know, it may become one of your favourites that you're going to grow year after year. In terms of my favourites, the first one that I'm going to talk about is Sun Gold. Now, there is a reason that pretty much everybody has heard of Sun Gold, and that is because it is just such a good performer. The fruit is just so tasty. Those little orangey yellow cherry-sized tomatoes are so delicious. And last year when I grew them, certainly most of them never made it even out of the polytunnel because I'd eaten them by then. They never made it as far as the house. So I'm going to be growing plenty of those, and alongside it, the next ones that I'm going to be growing are these. This is Tomato Rainbow Blend. Now, when I grew these last year, I only had one plant, and I thought it was just one single variety. What it is actually 4 different varieties blended into one packet. They're all the same type of tomato in that they're little cherry-sized but plum-shaped tomatoes, but they come in 4 different colours. There's a yellow one, an orange one, a red one, and even a pink one. They are really, really delicious. I can't recommend them enough. If you can get hold of Rainbow Blend, get yourself a packet of these. You will not be sorry that you did. So those are the favourites that I'm growing this year, and then I'm going to be trying some other different ones. The first one is called Midnight Snack. It's an F1 hybrid, and I'm going to be honest, I was totally seduced by the picture on the packet. That really dark black purple, it just looks really cool. I'm going to give them a go, and I'll report back on how they are. And I'm also going to be growing 3 specialist, sort of unusual varieties. One's called JD's Special C-Tex. One is called Russian Swirl, and one is called Neves Azorean. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'll make sure to link all of these varieties and all of the seeds that I'm talking about in the description down below. So that's all of the tomatoes that I'm going to be growing, and alongside those I'm going to be bringing on some chili peppers this year, which I'm really looking forward to, and I'm going to be growing several varieties. The first packet I've got is Chili Pepper Spangles Twilight. It's a mix of different coloured chilies. Some are white, some are yellow, some are purple, and some are red. They're little small heart-shaped ones. They're kind of ornamental as well, and they're not particularly hot. The little, and I think unofficial, heat scale on the packet says that they're about a 3, so they're quite mild. But then I'm going to be growing two pretty, as I would describe it, established favourites. The first one is a hot pepper, it's cayenne, and the other one is serrano. Both of these are lovely, really hot chilies that I'm looking forward to trying, and hopefully I can make all sorts of things with them and also dry them out so that I can use them throughout the year. But it's not only chili peppers that I'm growing, I'm going to be sowing some sweet peppers as well. Now, we cook with a lot of sweet peppers here in this house, but we tend not to use the bell peppers. We use the more elongated sweet peppers. Really, really love them, but I've never grown them before. So I tracked down some seeds, and these are sweet pepper Corno di Toro Rosso. So they'll be started at the same time as the chili peppers and the tomatoes, and we'll see how I get on with them as well. If you're enjoying this video or finding it useful and you haven't already, please give it a thumbs up down below and consider subscribing. Oh, and at the end of this episode, I'll link some other videos that I think you'll enjoy. Right, so that's all of the seeds covered that have a specific heat requirement. The rest of the seeds that I'm going to talk about now don't have that specific heat requirement, but you are still going to need to sow them under cover at this time of year to give them that extra little bit of protection. Of the seeds that I'm going to be talking about now, I've grown most of the varieties before, but some of them are new to me, and I've got Liz Zorab to thank for that. Liz has got a fantastic channel all about homesteading and self-sufficiency, and she also does some great videos about what seeds you can sow each month of the year, which I'll link up above. That gave me some really good inspiration for some new things that I'm going to try, so thanks very much, Liz. So you can start off radishes in February, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to be sowing two different types. The first one is French breakfast, which is those long cylindrical ones with little white ends, and the other type is a typical globe-shaped pink radish called Cherry Belle. I'm going to be growing plenty of radishes because, as well as them being really nice in salads, we would actually cook with them. If you chop them up, you can put them into things like stir fries. Trust me, if you haven't done that before, it is absolutely delicious. If you didn't get your broad beans sown back in the autumn, and I am one of those people, you can get some broad beans started now under cover. That'll give you a nice early group of plants that are nice and stocky and healthy and strong, and that will also give you a nice early crop. And this year I am growing the Sutton. I'm really looking forward to getting these started. I'll sow some in February, and I'll also do some later successional sowing so that I have a nice continuous crop of broad beans throughout the year. If you want to get ahead, you can sow some early pea varieties now. This one is Meteor, and it's a first early variety. I'm going to sow some in February and also do some successional sowing throughout the spring so that, a bit like the broad beans, I have a nice ongoing harvest of peas. So on to something that I've never personally grown before and that I know is broccoli, but it's actually Calabrese. Now, if you look at the packet, it says that you should be sowing this in April, but I've seen that Charles Dowding sows some of his brassicas very early around Valentine's Day to get a nice early crop. And he knows what he's talking about, so that's what I'm going to be doing as well. I'm going to get a few of these sown, not too many though, because there's only so many heads of Calabrese or broccoli that you can eat at one time. I'm just going to grow a very few of these to start with, but like the peas and the beans, I'll be planning on successional sowing so that hopefully I get a nice ongoing crop of these. Okay, Brussels sprouts, do you love them or do you loathe them? Whatever side of the fence you sit on, if you want to sow them, now is the time to be getting them started. I personally love them, so I'm going to be sowing some now. And the type that I'm going for, or the variety that I'm going for, is called Evesham Special. Now, I'm not quite sure how much room I'm going to have in the veg garden this year, so I'm going to be just a little bit careful about how many of these I sow. They do grow into fairly large plants, so I won't be growing too many of them, but I'll be getting them started now. I never thought I'd get excited about cauliflower, but now that I'm going to try and grow it myself, I am excited. So I thought I'd go for a really hardy variety since it's my first time, and I'm going to be sowing cauliflower all the year round. This is apparently a really tough seed that's very tolerant to cold weather, so I'm going to be sowing some of these at the same time, and like the Brussels sprouts and like the Calabrese, I'm not going to be growing too many of them because I don't want a massive glut of them, but what I will do is I'll start some now and I'll plan for some successional sowings of them throughout the year. This is a whole load of seeds to get started and I'm really excited, but we're not done yet, and that's because I've still got some more seeds to talk about that you can start in February, but actually I started back in January. In my January seed sowing video, I talked about how I like salads, and there's a whole load of things that I sow that I can use for baby leaves to put into salads. So I'll rattle through them really quickly. The first one is lamb's lettuce, super hardy, super easy to grow. If you haven't already started some, you can start some in February. And alongside that, you can also start some rocket, which is really lovely in salads. I've started sowing some perpetual spinach. Now, I've only ever grown regular spinach before, and I wasn't too sure about this, but the ones that I sowed in January germinated perfectly and are growing really nicely. So I'll do a successional sowing of those. And alongside that, I'm going to sow some more of a seed that I thought was a really risky bet, and that's lettuce salad bowl. I'd read that it's quite hardy, but I wasn't sure whether I was going to have any success. Well, I can report back that I sowed them in January and they germinated really well, so I'll be sowing some more of those. And alongside all of those, I'm going to be continuing some more successional sowing of beetroot and kale. Rather than growing them onto full size for harvest, they make really lovely little baby salad leaves. And to go alongside all of those, some more peas. But instead of growing the meteor ones that I'm going to grow on 4 peas, these are the ones that I sowed last month, which are Cerisa, and I'm going to be growing them on for pea shoots. And in fact, here are the ones that I sowed last month. You can see that they've germinated really nicely and they're coming on really well. Then, as if all of that wasn't enough, I'm going to continue some successional sowing of white Lisbon spring onions and also a couple of herbs. They're just my favourite herbs that I get through really quickly: chives and parsley. So you can already see the difference between January and February in terms of how much more you can sow, and it's only going to get busier as spring continues. I'm really enjoying making these videos, showing you the seeds that I'm sowing this year and hopefully giving you some inspiration of the seeds that you can sow. It kind of feels like we're growing together, which I really like. So as ever, leave me a comment down below because I love hearing from you. Particularly let me know what you're choosing to sow this year. It'll be really interesting to compare. If you haven't already, give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe, and make sure to hit that bell icon so that you'll be notified when I post my next video. And until next time, see you later.